what was the major sticking point in there today, aside from 130? Did they get that?
Oh, look, there's a lot of difficulties in negotiations, and today was no different. But I've got to say, the clubs and the commission, the way they handled it today, and I think each party gave up a little bit in order to get a deal, and that's a good outcome, particularly before Christmas.
Todd, what is the deal? Like, it doesn't tell us exactly what the deal is in regards to salary cap plus what percent.
Well, again, we won't know the salary cap because we haven't done a collective bargaining agreement with the players, but what today tells you is that clubs will be funded better than they've ever been, and that the grassroots of the game will receive more funding than at any time in the game's history. That's a good outcome for everyone across the game. It took some time to get there, but we got there.
But that's not telling us anything. It's not telling the fans of the game anything. You haven't told us exactly what the funding is, Todd.
Well, I can't tell you what the funding for clubs or players are going to be in the future because we haven't done a deal with the players.
Is it 130% though, Todd?
Well, what I can tell you is there's definitely clubs will have a margin above salary cap in the future, but what that will be determined is when we do the salary cap. And I can also tell you that grassroots will get a significant investment, but the one thing out of today which is most important is all parties move their negotiation to get an outcome, and that's a good thing.
Can you tell us the margin, Todd?
Well, again, it's hard to be determined because the salary cap hasn't been done yet, so none of these things are locked in, but there's an agreement that's binding today on the parties of how that will work. That's a good outcome.
Will John Grant survive the next 12 months?
Yeah, absolutely he will. John's in a position where he's got to put the game's best interests at heart, and he's come under some personal criticism, and that's okay. That's the way the game works. But today, again, the commission, John, the clubs, all of them handle themselves, I think, with a great deal of professionalism, and the game's best interests have been put first, and I think everyone should be pleased with that.
There was obviously a lot of unhappiness. Is there a concern that relationship may threaten to sour going forward?
Oh, I wouldn't think so. Look, I said this a couple of weeks ago, and I'll say it again. This is not a new phenomenon in sport where the distribution of funding creates debate. And rugby league is no different to most others. And today was the outcome of a number of difficult weeks for the game, but we've got a good outcome, and I think we should all be very pleased.
Did the clubs get 2 spots on the commission?
What we agreed to do was we agreed that in the new year we would sit down together and consider governance reform. And that may mean a change in the way the commission is structured. But we'll do that together, and that was one of the outcomes of today.
Todd, fans have watched this broad from afar, and it's gone on for well over a month. It looks as though John Grant wanted to save himself ahead of the game by giving up spots on the commission, but we've received this statement today. I think any fan of the game would read that statement and think you've got nothing done at all.
Oh, I disagree with you. I think
But why can't you tell us exactly what you have got done, because this doesn't tell us anything?
Well, what I'm saying to you is we have got it done. We've done a 5-year agreement now with the clubs on funding principles and mechanisms that will be tied to the salary cap for the next 5 years. Which are a percentage above the margin. Now, we don't know what that will be because we haven't done a deal with the players. The collective bargaining agreement is in play now with the players. So the moment that we have salary caps, that will fund into the model. Everyone will know exactly the amount they will get. But until such time as we do that, it's impossible to say.
So why were the clubs happy with that then?
Well, I think what everyone did today was had to give up a little bit. It's a negotiation like any commercial negotiation. To get to an outcome, people have to give a little bit. And the club should be congratulated, as should the commission today, because everyone gave up a little bit of ground in order to get a result. And that's a good result.
But with no figures in place, it must be, how did the clubs agree to this?
Well, there are figures in place, but you just can't specify the exact numbers until such time as you do a deal with the players. It's no more simple than that.
To get a deal done, Todd, did the independent commission give up its independence?
No, I don't think they gave up independence. What they said was, let's open our mind to what it could look like in the future. So there's been no changes to the commission structure today, but there has been an undertaking that in the new year, the clubs and the commission will sit down with an independent review via John Coates, and we'll see if there's a better way. And I think there's a real appetite to consider how clubs can get a greater say around the commission table. I think the commission are very open to that. I'm very open to that, and I think the clubs would welcome that.
Do the clubs feel that John Grant is the man to lead the NRL commission?
Well, that's a question for the clubs, but what the club saw today was a very diligent chairman who's worked very hard behind the scenes over the last few weeks to try to find an outcome for the game. I genuinely think it's been less about John Grant, but more about the outcomes for the rugby league. Today's a good result for that.
Could this have been avoided if the commission hadn't reneged on the deal they reached last December?
Oh, look, there's lots of things that could have changed over time, but I think we could have handled ourselves better in some parts. But these are emotional issues for the game, and as I said, it's probably not the first time we've debated issues of distribution of funding, and it probably won't be the last.
Did John Grant receive sort of an end to his tenure today? Was it agreed he'd stay for 1 year or 5 years that he wanted? How long is it?
No, there's no time on tenure at all. Again, John will serve for as long as the members want him to serve. But what we have done is we've said that constitutional reform is important. So we'll look at that next year. But we'll do that together. It won't be something that we'll do in isolation. We'll do it with the clubs.
John Grant's been at the forefront of these negotiations. How come he isn't out here talking to us?
Well, we made a decision today that neither John or the head of the clubs, being Bart Campbell, it didn't make a lot of sense for either of those, given the discussions today and the negotiations, which were quite complex. So I'm absolutely happy as the CEO of the game to make an announcement to the media today that we've got towards the end of what has been a difficult negotiation. But we're pleased because the next 5 years we will be able to invest more across the game and the clubs will be sustainable. That's very important.
Do you want to expedite the negotiations over the CBA now?
No, I don't think so. We've started those negotiations. We've still got a CBA in place for another 12 months. But I'd expect our discussions with the players to continue in the new year. And I'm hopeful we can come to a good conclusion on those negotiations during next year. How long that takes, I'm not sure.
Todd, are you confident this ends any discussion about a potential Super League split?
I never thought that was a discussion in the beginning, so yeah, no problems there.
Do we now need to wait till March 1 for this new AGM to sort out these constitutional issues, or are you hoping before that?
Well, I think the mood of the room today was real appetite with clubs in the game to sit down in the new year to try to look at a new governance model. And that is an opportunity to open our minds to other ways. So I'd expect we'll do that in January and February, and that'll happen pretty quickly.
Todd, what's the maximum limit you can't go over? The NRL can't go over the salary cap. Is it 12 million, 11 million, 9.5? I mean, you haven't decided yet, but there must be a limit where you can't go any higher.
Well, I think there'll always be a limit on what the game can afford. And ultimately, their decisions will have to make. I think that's less about funding, but more about affordability for the game. So I know the players deserve to get a significant uplift, and they'll get that. But we'll always pay across the game what's fair and reasonable, and the players will be in exactly that basket.